Welcome to the International Teacher Podcast with your host, Matt the Family Guy, Kent the Cat Guy, Jacqueline from JP Mint, and Greg the Single Guy, bringing you episodes from around the world about the best kept secret in education. You got it, international teaching. Welcome to the show. Once again, this is Greg. Welcome to the episode. This is Greg the Single Guy, and I'm here with Kent the Cat Guy. How you doing, Kent?
Great to be here. Thanks, Greg.
Ready for some Christmas, aren't you?
I'm all set.
Yeah, and also is JP, but JP is in Canada right now. She fled Mexico for a little bit to be in Canada. What are you doing in Canada, JP?
I'm visiting family and friends and enjoying the snow, the white stuff outside the window. So not stepping out into it, but looking at it, it's beautiful.
The joys of retirement, huh, Kent? Just get up and go.
You know, JP might work harder than both of us combined.
Yeah, she does. We know that. That's why she's the boss. But listen, we enough about us. We're really excited to present to you our new guest, and our guest is coming in from New Delhi, India. Tamisha Chantel, welcome to the show.
Woo! Yay, I'm here. I finally made it.
I hear you've been listening to a few of our episodes. Is that true?
You know, actually, JP did force me. She kept playing
at gunpoint.
Me.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I ended up here.
Wow. Well, listen, speaking of here for your, can you give us a little bit of an elevator version of your journey through education and how you landed there?
This is actually, and it sounds weird to say sometimes, but this is actually my 28th year. So I've taught for 20 years in the States, in Cleveland, Ohio, in the inner city. So I've done a little bit of everything from curriculum specialist to classroom teacher. So a little bit of everything. And then in 2018, I moved to Shanghai, China, where I was a reading coach and a grade 5 classroom teacher. Then I started EAL my second year there, and I've continued in EAL even after moving to India. So this is my third year here in India. 4 years.
You're doing a great job with English. Yeah, you speak really well for an EAL student. Or do you mean, oh, wait, you taught EAL. I'm sorry, that's right. Okay.
I do teach EAL, and it is something I enjoy. This year, well, for the past 3 years, I have been first grade EAL, but I've done everything from grade K to 5 under EAL.
Bless your heart. I mean, first grade teachers are so special. They really are. Fourth grade teachers are a dime a dozen, right, Kent? But yeah, first grade teachers...
You can get them off the street.
Hey, I've done everything from K to 8, so I respect it all.
Well, once we get up there in the years, between the four of us, I think we counted at some point, we're almost at 100 years between the four of us of education. And it just shows that, you know, a kid says, what did you teach? And you're like, well, what haven't I taught after a while, right? So good for you. That's great. And you were, roll back a little bit. You're Cleveland, Ohio, right? You were in Cleveland?
I'm originally from Mississippi, but once I graduated from university, I moved to Ohio. And that's where I get praise, because that's where I got all of my experience. I was in the same school district for 21 years.
Well, I have to shout out for you Cleveland Browns fans, because the Cleveland fans are second only to the Green Bay Packer fans, because, you know, you guys lost your team for a while. I don't talk a lot about football, but since I am from Green Bay, we do talk about fans, and the fan base for Cleveland has always been so good. They lasted 3 years without him until they got him back, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, I mean, hats off to you guys, but not quite, you know, Packer fans, but definitely I'm impressed with Cleveland. But yeah, had to throw that in there.
Tamisha, can you tell us, how did you learn about international teaching? If you were in Ohio, you know,
Good
just
question.
moseying along your way in the district, how did you learn that there is this thing called international teaching?
And I always tell people that when I reflect back on this, I often wonder the same thing. I just remember around 2010, I started telling people that I was going to move abroad. So mind you, I was married at that time. My daughter was in school at that time, but I just knew that I wanted to move abroad. I knew that I was going to move to Dubai for some reason.
Wow. You're just like, I'm going to Dubai. That's it. I'm going to Dubai. If I can get a teaching job, fine, but I'm moving to Dubai.
At
Is that
that
what you said?
time, that is exactly the way it was. And people would ask, like, I remember there were a few teachers in the building that I was in. They would ask, like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I just know that I'm moving overseas. And anybody who knows me, they actually know that if I say that I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And the worst thing you can do is doubt me, because then it motivates me and fuels me to prove you wrong. As time went on, because again, that was like 2010, I didn't move overseas until 2018. So as time went on, things just began to evolve and change in my life. I never stopped dreaming, but I just constantly shelved the dream. So 2010, I talked about it. I shelved the dream, pulled it back off the shelf in 2012, put it back on the shelf, pulled it back off the shelf again in like 2016, 2017. I really started to hear people at that time talk about teaching abroad. But I heard a lot of people saying like the benefits weren't great, the pay was low, and they just talked about teaching English. And in my head, I was thinking like, there has to be something more to do than to teach English. Surely there are like real schools abroad. So just started to research more. I was able to use social media because, let me say, I fought against social media forever. I did not join Facebook until 2016. I did not join IG or Instagram until 2020. So I fought against social media forever. But I think I joined at the right time, because when I joined, I used it to actually network. I think I was really blessed, and everything unfolded the way it should, because I started to find so many expat and educator abroad groups and international educator groups. And I was like, okay, this is a real thing, a real world out here. And in 2017, I was offered the opportunity to interview in the UAE, in Dubai, in April. I talked myself out of it because I kept saying, like, I won't be able to sell both of my homes. I won't be able to do anything with my vehicle. I won't have time to just do anything with resigning from the school district or tying up loose ends. So I think I sabotaged myself at that time. And that was in April. But by July, I started to live, drink, eat, sleep, living abroad. And I just knew, like, okay, either do this or stop talking about it. Find something else to pat yourself about.
Well, it's interesting because let's jump forward a little bit. How did you end up going overseas? Because you bypassed the chance to go to the UAE and interview. Or did they want you in person?
I would have interviewed with the school on Zoom. So
Okay.
interviewed online, but again, I declined because it was like it hit so suddenly. This is what I've talked about for years, but again, I just kind of talked myself out of it. No one.
Because it was real. Yeah. It was real at the time. Yeah. The reason I ask you is because how did you end up interviewing for something overseas then? How did you end up doing that?
So, like I said, by July, I was eating, sleeping, drinking, moving abroad. I connected with different people. I started to find out about international schools. I started to find out just about the benefits and just the lucrative life that you had the opportunity to live compared to the US. I actually got in contact with a few of the recruiting agencies that people suggested, like Teach Away, Teach Anywhere, all the different agencies that people suggested. But oddly enough, the position I ended up with in Shanghai when I moved was one that I actually did a direct apply for, because I also started to just research schools independently of those agencies. And yeah, so it was like November, I signed up to go to a Teach Away fair in Atlanta. I went to the fair. I received a few offers there from Kuwait, a couple offers from the UAE. I ended up turning those offers down because, again, I'm a person that has a lot of faith, and I kind of believe that what's meant will come. And like I said, I continued to research schools. I did a direct apply to my first school that I actually accepted the job in China. It's funny because I was contacted in January about interviewing. When I received the email, I was like, this is a scam.
Right? How do you trust them? Yeah.
Yep.
Really?
Had you heard of the school before? The one that contacted you back? Okay.
I'd actually done a direct apply to them. So
I'm sorry, you said that, yeah.
it's just when you get that email and you start to see like the foreign characters and someone is saying like they're the principal and they've looked over your CV and they think that you would be a good fit for X position, you're like, is this real? Like, could it be happening? And he asked about setting up an interview. I responded back and agreed. He responded back to say that his assistant would be in touch. Within 24 hours, she was in touch. And within 48 hours, I was interviewing. And mind you, I interviewed probably at like 3 a.m.
Oh, for the time difference.
Yeah, because there was like, you know, it was a 13-hour time difference because the U.S., we were on daylight savings time.
So when you're in the pajamas on the bottom and you're on like a proper attire on the top.
I don't know anything about that.
And
I don't know anything about pajamas on the bottom.
And you have your cute little scarf on and your lipstick. Yeah. Well, okay, wait, Greg and Ken, you guys may not know anything about the lipstick, but yeah, the rest.
Oh, are
No,
you kidding?
Ken's all
I wear
about
lipstick.
Tamisha, if I may ask, I know that you're not done talking about how you took that first job, but you had been talking about it for a long time. Were your friends and family surprised, shocked, worried? What was their reaction to you actually taking the steps, applying to the school, accepting the offer? What was that? What was their reaction?
So I remember when I really, really, really got deep into this, and I remember when I went to the job fair, and it's funny because actually I went to the job fair the weekend of like December 5th, 2018. So this is like the anniversary period for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling my mom, like, I got these offers, and I remember her just kind of saying like, it's really good, but I just don't really want to talk about this right now. And that's a mom. It's a mom. So in her head, it was like, child will be going, no matter how old she is, she's still my baby. And she's talking about going thousands of miles away.
Right.
So she was supportive, but it was still just kind of a sad and sore spot for her. She would listen, but I always knew that it was kind of hard. I think she was a little bit happy when I didn't accept those initial offers because it's like, well, maybe she's rethinking this. My dad just kept kind of saying, are you sure this is what you want to do? Because it's far away. And of course, again, it kind of fuels me.
Do you remember what schools you had offers from back then? Like the first job fair you went to?
Oh my goodness.
In general, like what countries they were?
Well, at the Teach Away Fair, I got 2 offers in Kuwait, and then I got 2 offers in the UAE. So one of them was in Dubai and one of them was in Abu Dhabi, which at that time, those were the 2 places, Dubai and Abu Dhabi, that everybody wanted to go to. And Kuwait, actually, at that time, was the place where a lot of teachers who were just starting their abroad journey, that's where they would go, and then they would pivot to other places. So it was like both places were useful. Here's the place where everybody wants to go and see because it's the golden ticket in paradise. Here's the place where you can go, and there may be some speed bump, but you can use this experience in Kuwait to pivot. But God.
Wow, UAE though. And this is what's interesting is that you pivoted once again. You said you turned it down, but that was Dubai offered you. You know, it's like, that's crazy that you didn't take it. You talked yourself out of it.
And keep in mind, I'd said since 2010.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm asking. I wanted to know if Dubai was one of those. It may have not been the right school. I mean, Dubai has got so many schools, and I don't know what the Teach Away Fair was like either. We could talk about that later if we have time. But wow, that's fascinating, and that you just turned that down.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
Tamisha, you were getting this offer, this offer for Zoom, and then eventually, I presume, the offer to go to Shanghai. And what steps did you take to prepare yourself for that move? Because you mentioned earlier house, you had a house for sale, you had cars probably. So what did you do between January and, say, July or August when you made the ultimate move? What were some of the preparations?
So after the interview, I just remember my former principal messaging me. And it was a few hours later, and she was like, ex person from this school in China contacted me about you. And I'm like, whoa. And then my current principal, she did the same thing. She said, someone just contacted me about you from Shanghai, China. And I was like, what?
And that's not an everyday
Yep.
comment from a
Yep.
teacher in Cleveland, Ohio, right?
So and my former principal and my current principal both tell me like they've been contacted as references about me. So that set it into motion like, okay, this is a real situation. A few days later, I received another email, and this time I knew it was real because I'd actually interviewed and spoken to people and everything. And I was told that they actually wanted to make me an offer, and that they wanted to actually start the onboarding process as soon as possible, which made it even more real to hear somebody say, we want to make your offer and, take a minute to think about it. But also this onboarding process will be pretty long. And their onboarding process would be long, but also all the things that I needed to tie up would be. So February, Cleveland, lots of cold, lots and lots of snow. I put my house on the market, put both of them on the market, and just started to think about, like, I'm a list person, started to think about all the things that I would need to do. Got a notebook, started making lists.
That's a long list.
Check into retirement. Okay. We'll need to change where banking statements go. Check into my 403Bs and just check on sick days because I had a lot of sick days within my school district, over 120 plus days. And I needed to figure out what would happen with those days because in Cleveland, they pay those days out. So I needed to find out how that would happen or if it would happen. I needed to check on resigning, and it was just a lot. So I just started to make a list and try to check things off. Amazingly enough, in 2024, almost 2025, I do still have some things on that list that I still need to deal with.
Feed dog. Oh, I forgot that one.
It was a long process. And on top of my personal list, there was a professional list because to get into China, it's not a joke. So when they send that onboarding list, there's so many things that you need to start to do, like FBI check, gathering documents, sending them off to get them authenticated. It was just like never ending, but it was so exciting. It did take me like a couple weeks to kind of finally break the news to my mom and dad.
Oh boy.
Tamisha.
Other knew before they did, but it took a couple of weeks for me to break the news to them, and then like start to tell others.
Did you do like little seeds of hints, or did you just drop this
Or
wallop?
the Chinese embassy sending stuff to your house?
I've been working on Chinese and Duolingo.
I'm thinking about China. I may move to China, something like that. But I think at that time, when I was I've been thinking about China, I may move to China. I already knew like this was where I was going, because I have to be honest. When I did that interview, something felt right. It felt good to me. And
Intuition.
I knew even after getting off Zoom and disconnecting, I remember saying a prayer because something just felt like this was where I was supposed to go. And I remember later sharing with my aunt, one of my mom's oldest sisters, and she's really spiritual. And her thing was I was following the path that was set prior to being placed in my mother's womb.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
How long did you have to think about that? When they made their offer, did they give you like a 24-hour or say, get back to us within the week? Or how did they handle that? That specific school, I mean.
What I did like was that it wasn't you have to, today is Friday, so we need to know by Monday. They
Good.
did tell me to take time to read through everything, to think about the offer. If I had any questions, to feel free to contact them whenever, and just to kind of let them know as soon as I could so that we could
Good.
start the onboarding process, because it was lengthy. But the one thing that I never felt was rushed.
Rushed.
And like I said, the one thing that felt right to me was that on that call, it was something that just felt so good about the people who were in that interview and the conversations that we had, that I was like, this is where I want to go.
Tamisha, did they give you any email addresses of teachers to contact ahead of time to help your decision?
I actually interviewed with the principal, which was at that time the elementary principal. The high school principal was there, and two of the elementary teachers was there. One of those elementary teachers was actually the ELA, which was the English Language Arts. She was actually the department chair. Then they actually paired me with a buddy as well.
Wow.
To support that. So
was that all of it at the same time on the Zoom? Did you have to be in front of a panel?
Yeah,
You did. I hate that, don't you? I had to interview. I was in Venezuela. I'm going to piggyback a little bit. I was in Venezuela and I was researching, and I got called by a school in Dresden in Germany, and they said, "All right." And I was willing to do pretty much any time. It was early in the year, so it was like December. They said, "Well, we're going to set up this time." It turned out to be 3 a.m. in Venezuela, so I get on there and it was horrible. There were like 8 people sitting in a conference room, and they were all on the same, like one camera, all of them sitting there. It's like, oh, it was so daunting for me. I'd never done that before. Wow. But yeah, that's a long story from way back when. But having that kind of a conference call is very intimidating, right?
It can be.
Well, it wasn't for you. It sounds like you had a great time with it, but
well, you know what? I think before I start any interview, I always tell the people or the person I'm interviewing with that I'm passionate about what I do. I love what I do, and I always tell them, like, if I start to ramble, let me know. And it's just the passion that I have. So when I'm talking about something that I love, the words just flow, and the comfort, it's there.
we do a red light with Kent. If he's talking too much, we have a red light on there to get him off stage.
The stand-up comedian in him, it's like,
Tamisha, can you tell us a little bit about life and teaching in China? Was it Taiwan or was it China? I know it's kind of
in
Shanghai.
And
Shanghai. Thank you.
I always tell people, like, I loved my life there. I loved China until China didn't love me anymore. And I say that because of the last lockdown that was 2022. I experienced that lockdown. So I actually moved to Shanghai. I arrived like August 2nd, 2018. And it was just, whoa. I felt like Mary Tyler Moore getting off the airplane. If I had on a hat, I probably would have taken it.
And for our younger listeners, Mary Tyler Moore was an old TV show from the 70s.
Go check it out, YouTube.
Comedy.
We're showing our age, Tamisha, when we're like, oh yeah, Mary Tyler Moore, sure.
Myself, but I felt like Mary Tyler Moore when I got off the plane and just going through the airport, and also even prior to that, being at the airport for my first layover in Detroit and just hearing the gate agent speak Chinese. I was like, I'm really doing this. Whoa.
After all those years, you're doing it. Yeah.
Tamisha, I love hearing this experience through your eyes, because I think every international teacher can remember just when all of that was fresh and new.
Yeah, we're all going back in our memory banks.
I'm loving
that.
I'm loving reliving that through your eyes. And also, I did want to say, congratulations to all the ITPers out there who are receiving offers maybe for the first time this month. It was 11 years ago this week, just like you said, that I had received an offer for the position I'm in now. So congratulations, and just enjoy the
You
memories.
can have it just like Tamisha. You can have that experience
I
and
love
look
that.
forward to it. That's great.
That's exactly
I love the
right.
fact that you landed in China and you're like, I finally did it. I'm finally here.
Change the experience for the world. The 2018 to 2020 was amazing. Even during the first part of COVID, even though they closed the borders, our life was still pretty much normal, minus being able to exit the country.
Yep.
But other than that, it was still pretty much normal. And I stayed 2 additional years. But I did know that in June of 2021, I made up my mind, like, even if I were offered another contract, I would not be.
Move on.
The 2021 to 2022 would be my last year. Oddly enough, September of 2021, I was offered another contract. At that time, we were offered a pandemic bonus along with a re-signing bonus.
Oh.
I turned the pandemic bonus and the re-signing bonus down and the right to re-sign because I just knew that
It was time.
yeah, it was time, and I didn't know when I would be able to see my family, and I'm like, I just can't continue on this
So
way.
Tamisha, you did not have another job to go to at the time you turned that bonus and that contract down.
In September of 2021, I did not have
September.
anywhere else to go outside of, like, my mom always said it. She always said it in a joking way, but I know being a mom myself, you say it in a joking way, but you mean it. My mom always just told me, you can always come back home. Home is
Can Greg and I spend time at your mom's house just in case we need
Please,
to?
we go home?
tell your mom.
You will have some amazing food because remember, I'm from Mississippi, Southern hospitality. So, but yeah.
So, Tamisha, that's something very unique that some of our listeners, especially new to international teaching, might not realize, that a lot of times we're quitting, or, we're sort of saying that this is my last year before we have the next job. So walk us through that a little bit. Like, how did that feel, and knowing that you were going to be doing that?
So, like I said, in June 2021, I'd already in my head thought and knew, like, this is going to be it, because I had not seen my family, my daughter, or anyone since January, the first week in January of 2020.
Wow.
This is now June 2021. I have no idea when these borders open. So at this time, I had to think family or job. And in my head, as much as I knew that I wanted to work and continue to stay abroad, I also knew I couldn't continue to not see my family, because these are times that you just can't get back no matter what. September came and they started the recruitment process again, because at that time, remember, the borders were still closed. So they had to try and start early, and they wanted to also retain. But like I said, I turned down the re-sign bonus, the pandemic bonus, the contract. Was I nervous? Of course, because nobody wants to be without a job. And I have to be honest, that year, 2021, between September and December was scary for me, because I did probably about 30 to 35 applies. Some I received no response from. There were several that I had multiple interviews for, and then received the letter or received the email just saying that they decided not to go further. So think about going into the Christmas holidays with no job, going into the New Year still with no job. So what people need to also be aware of is hiring season usually starts in October. You do want to start as early as possible, and that doesn't mean that you have to accept anything early, but you want to start to get yourself out there early. You want to start to see what schools are out there, research those schools. If you can, chat with people who are at those schools or who have been there recently, and just know that it can take time. You may start interviewing in October, and that doesn't mean you'll have a job in November. You may
That
not
is
have
great
a job in
advice.
March.
Yeah.
I love that advice. And we've written about it, we've talked about it. a lot of, it comes up quite a bit, and it's great for new listeners to hear this, or the new teachers or teacher wannabes that want to go international. It's a different kind. I mean, when I was in the States, I remember before getting hired, I knew that my school system was going to be hiring in the summer, even June, even in July, even in August for September. And the international starts earlier every year. The job fairs start early, and there's this ebb and flow because you put your heart into it in October and then you get refused, and like I did with Dresden, right? Or you get denied and then you don't hear back from somebody. But on the other hand, they have all the power because they're doing it as an early, they're stepping into it early, but they're not handing out their offers, So then the hiring season, and the hiring season gets warmed up in that time, but then leading into December, February, January, February are the big fairs coming up, and it starts to get that hustle. I don't know about Teachaway, but I know the other fairs really, really pump up around February. And then what's weird, and I don't know if you experienced this, but then it continues on into March, April, May, June, and then they have that last minute June, July, August before they even start. So it's crazy how it goes up and down, ebb and flow.
I often tell people who are new, because I'm always willing to support anybody on the journey, but I often tell people who are new, just because you don't have a job by March, it doesn't mean that you won't get a job and that you won't get a job in a desirable place. Just be patient. Don't give up. Don't
Have faith.
And then I also tell people, like, in May, sometimes in June, what happens is people have changed their minds, and some of the positions that you thought were closed, they end up opening back up. So just, keep the faith and don't give up.
So what I'm hearing is what I'll often tell my clients is that recruiting is a year-long endeavor, and there will be highs and lows, as Greg says, ebbs and flows, but I think of it as a roller coaster, right? The highs and lows of recruiting. But to keep faith, to know that if this is your dream, just as it was for you, to be persistent, to be tenacious, to be brave, and just keep applying. Just keep applying, keep trying, don't lose hope.
Yeah, and people ask, a lot too about just life abroad. And I try to be as authentic and real as possible, because I know there are so many social media influencers and just people on social media in general who glamorize the lifestyle. And what I do tell people is, I'm here to work. We work every and work
You do.
hard.
Cat doesn't work. He just sits. I don't either. I play Legos.
Yeah, Greg and I glamorize life. Just look at us.
People feel like the brunches and the travel. Yes, there is all of that, but that's not.
It's not a vacation.
And then I also tell people too, because like during the last lockdown that I experienced, I was actually locked in my compound for about 70 days. And people
Wow.
Wow.
sort of just went outside, and I'm like, when you're in another country, you can't just do anything.
You different rules. You're a guest.
Follow those laws. China, Beijing said in Shanghai, they can't go outside, or they can't go outside of that compound gate. That's what happened. So those 70 plus days, I spent about 45 plus days where we could not even come out of our apartment unless we were going down to take a COVID test. Sometimes
Oh my.
it's hard for people to understand. Like, I never thought that I would be in this day and age a person who said that I received rations from the government. The government would send us rations. We were in a place where people don't understand. Those gates for those compounds were chained.
Wow. No, man.
Wow.
We have to live by other rules, right?
And we had to live by those rules. So I tell people that when you move abroad, leave whatever rules and regulations that you follow in your country, leave them in your country, no matter what country that is, and prepare to live by the rules and the law of the country that you're moving to. Research where you're moving And if you can visit, to be sure that it will be a good fit, because your life changes.
All right, let's take a moment for a little commercial about how to get in touch with us. You can, of course, find all four of us at the itpexpat.com. That's www.itpexpat.com.
Or you could also find us at email at internationalteacherpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Or if you're into Facebook, we have a new Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/ITPexpat, where you can find all kinds of inside information about ITP Expat.
You can also find us on Instagram at ITP Expats. That's with an S. ITP Expats is our handle.
All right, and thank you, listeners. We have over 100 countries represented by our listeners, and though we're not monetized, we are here for you, and we would like to thank all of you for listening. So let's get back to the show.
Tamisha, you're very wise. I'm loving this. I'm loving this talk, because we're getting to know a lot about that moving overseas for the first time through your eyes. Can you tell us a little bit about how did you find India? Because that's now, you decided you're out of China, you're not going to resign. You got to December, there still wasn't a job offer in the mix. Where were you able to go to a job fair? I think at that point it was still locked down, correct?
Everything at that time, the borders were still closed. The borders actually didn't open in China until, my goodness, months after I left. Because I actually ended up leaving 30 days early. I was supposed to leave the first part of July of 2022, and I actually left the first part of June of 2022. But so I didn't have a job in December. I didn't have a job in January. So where I am now is in New Delhi, and my school on mine. Let me give a shout out to American Embassy School in New Delhi. Of my previous schools in Shanghai, because I'm no longer there. But I am currently at American Embassy School. Yeah, American Embassy
School. Beautiful campus. So green. I got to visit there during an iPad summit in 2014, I think. Just gorgeous.
Okay.
I saw a picture of the swimming pool.
So many changes, and we are actually just preparing to undergo even more changes. So if you were here in 2014, I can tell you now, it has probably changed a lot and will continue to change even after I'm gone. But I look back now, and I actually applied to American Embassy School in 2020. I never got an interview. And so then I applied to American Embassy School in 2021, because again, I was kind of at the point where I have to leave China. I can't stay here. So the crazy thing is, I applied in 2021, and I actually had 2 interviews with my current principal and assistant principal. And again, with those 2 interviews in 2021, after a short while, I received an email from my current principal just saying that, I would end up being a great attribute, a great fit to wherever I ended up. But unfortunately, they could go no further in the hiring process with me for AES. And I sent him back an email, and I thanked him for the time that they'd taken. And in the email, I said something like, it's just not my time. And that was just my little monarch, it's not my time. So I said, I'll just stay to myself. I'm thinking, like, I'll just stay in China. I know I won't come back after the 2021-2022 school year. I applied to AES again on GRC in 2022. Now, mind you, this is my third time applying. One time in 2020, one time 2021, and now it's 2022. I received an email from my current assistant principal. And you know how when you receive the email and a person is saying like they want to have a conversation with you, a chat or whatever, just to talk because they have an opening that they think it'll be good for you, kind of send that email back just saying like, I appreciate it. I'd love to share like my experience and my journey in the profession with you. Right after I hit send, I was like, this is American Embassy. Yes. You know how sometimes things don't dawn on you. And I'm like, I interviewed with them. So I immediately sent a follow-up like, hi to the assistant principal saying, it just dawned on me, you know, that who this email was from, XYZ. And I guess we were emailing at the same time because I got an email from him and he was saying, you know, we chatted before. Whatever. So it was one of those things. They set up an interview for me. And I remember when we were supposed to interview, the day we were supposed to interview, the assistant principal sent me an email. And I kind of felt deflated because in the email, he just said that something had come up, unfortunately, and that they need to reschedule the interview. And in my head, I thought, not again. But I sent an email response back just saying, thank you. I understand life happens. Feel free, you know, to let me know when you're ready to schedule this interview again, and I'll make myself available. He held true to his word, and within maybe a day or two, everything was rescheduled and we were off. I've had a couple interviews with Charles and Scott, my principal and assistant principal, interview with the literacy person who's the team lead for literacy, and an interview with the person that was the team lead for EAL at the time. So another interview with a panel.
Another panel.
Yeah, and just it felt good. It felt like everything went well. And here's the funny part, maybe I do know like they check my references and everything because they actually reached back out to say like, we're trying to contact, you know, XYZ and we haven't been able to get in contact with them. If you're able to contact them, let them know and let them know that they can reach out to us because this now is the holdup on whether or not we can proceed.
Wow.
So I was able to reach out to one of my very important references. And at that time, she was actually on Chinese New Year. And she promised that
That's about a week-long celebration.
Yep. Well, actually 2 weeks. They
2
were
weeks
out, but she promised that they were coming to the end. And she promised that as soon as she was able to get settled and everything, that she would respond, and she held true to her word, and she did. She was the final piece. Like I said, she held true to her word and followed through for me. Within a few days, I was actually, and this is crazy, this is why it is very important to check spam. I was going through my spam folder and I actually gotten an email and it said, say yes to AES.
Whoops.
That subject does sound like spam. What the heck?
Tell you, it was a Friday night. It was a Friday night and it was like, say yes to AES. And I actually opened it and it was from the head of HR and it was like, are you ready to say yes to AES? And it had all this information in there and how they were elated to be able to offer me a contract. And
oh my God.
Your acceptance email was in the spam folder.
It was. And I'm going to tell you, it jarred me just to even see the say yes to AES. And I honestly, because mind you, it's February. It is now February of 2022. So I'm not going to even act like I was nonchalant. I'm like, oh, AES. I was
like, that's going to be the title for this episode. Acceptance in February spam. Wow.
But keep in mind, here's the thing. My mom and dad knew that I was leaving China and they knew that I was interviewing, but
You're like, Mama and Dad, I'm coming closer.
Yeah,
But if I'm
my two brothers and my daughter were the ones to know about India and then to know about my acceptance to India. And I kind of broke the news to my mom, kind of the same way I did about China. Like, yeah, I've been interviewing and this is
Duolingo India.
I think I'm gonna go to India, and this time I think
India's nice this time of year.
and my dad kind of like, "Are you okay?"
Mom, should we get some Indian food tonight?
Oh, yeah. You break the news over bread. Non bread.
And so I signed, went through the onboarding process. The thing about it is I went through the onboarding process here for India during lockdown. I could have gotten my visa, my initial visa for India placed into my passport in China. That would have meant sending my passport to Beijing. I'm telling you, I have faith and I listen. When I feel things, I listen.
You dodged a bullet.
Told me, do not send your passport to Beijing. Something told me like the end of February, just wait. If you can do this when you get home, do it when you get home. Don't send your passport to Beijing. I'm so glad I didn't, because about 2 weeks later, we were locked down. And that means that my passport would have been in Beijing. And I don't know when I would have gotten that passport back to Shanghai, because if you know anything about the lockdown of 2022, there were no deliveries, there was nothing coming into Shanghai. So I would have been without my passport.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, something told me, just if you can get this visa when you arrive to the U.S., get it then. Don't send your passport. And I did not send my passport.
Well, at least your second onboarding process, I would think, was smoother. You were more acceptable, more confident, more calm. You knew better questions to ask. I'm sure it was a much better onboarding process, because every time you do that, you change a school, you tend to get more, I don't know, heavier skin, like thicker skin about things, and you start to learn processes, and they're all different. Every school has a different process, right?
Yeah. And it was the only stressful part about the onboarding process for coming to India was, again, I was trying to do things during a lockdown. Even to show you how things were, I needed to get, a full checkup. You have to have that full-blown medical, x-rays, everything, blood, everything done. I was trying to get a checkup, and I had to ask pretty much the head of my neighborhood, because at that time we had to talk to, just pretend your neighborhood has an HOA, and you can't do anything without talking to the HOA president. So at that time, I had to ask the head of my neighborhood if I could go to the doctor, to the hospital. And then the information I had to provide to them was, why did I need to go to the hospital? Because
all in their power too.
Yeah, what they told me was that going to the hospital is one of the worst places you can go, because you can bring back COVID.
Yeah.
So I had to get permission and provide a good reason for needing to go to the hospital. So my reason that I provided was, my blood pressure is extremely high. I need to go to
It's a teacher thing.
Yeah.
Teacher thing.
To the hospital. And there was this wonderful doctor in Shanghai who actually helped me be able to get to the hospital and get everything done that I needed. In order to get to the hospital, there were like no taxis or anything running. I had a neighbor, because here were my options to get to the hospital: to walk about 45 plus minutes, or to ride a bike. I was able to ask.
Greg and I would never make it.
I wouldn't have made it.
I wouldn't have made it out the door.
And when I asked my neighbor, she also had to get permission from the neighborhood person to be able to use her car to take me to the hospital. Once we got back from the hospital, here's the crazy thing, and I felt so awful because what they didn't tell us was, because we left the compound, at that time, we were able to at least go outside and walk around the compound. You could leave your apartment and go outside and walk around the compound. What they didn't tell us until we came back from the hospital was that because we left the compound, we now had to go on what they call the 5-day period of silence where we could not leave our apartments.
The quarantine.
My gosh, it even has a terrible name.
Listeners, life is not like this normally. I mean, that was COVID, definitely. And there's a lot of stories of COVID.
Tamisha, if I may. Oh, sorry, please.
No, I was about to, I felt so bad because I didn't mind give me the 5 days or whatever, but to have put somebody else in that predicament, I really felt bad. But she was such a beautiful spirit. She was like, as long as I to help you. And I will say, people say things about living in China, but during the periods of that 2022 lockdown, you were able to find local neighbors who helped and looked out for foreigners. It's a different type of feeling.
That's Tamisha, to be honest, JP and I have been trying to get Greg on 5 days of silence for quite a while now. So
can you get me on 20 minutes of silence?
Explain how that's going to work. Tamisha, if I may, skipping ahead to your hitting the ground in India, what's the experience like for you the second time or the third time? Is it as good as the first time? Because I wonder, for most international teachers, nothing beats the first experience you have overseas. But were you just as enchanted with landing in a new country the second time?
I was just as excited, just as nervous because you're meeting new people.
Start over.
But staff, so the nervousness was still there. I was just as excited, but I will say moving to China was just this whole big experience, and I just felt so exhilarated. Sometimes I can't even explain it, but I often tell people China will always hold a special place in my heart because that's where my experience started. It doesn't take anything away from India, but yeah, India was second to that huge first experience.
Do you speak any other languages, by the way?
Well, if you want me to maybe order a little rice, I could kind of dig up like.
Could you just talk to you saw me leave the camera before, right?
No.
And my connection to this is that, well, I left the camera while you were talking, and I had to go to the door because I wanted to get him before he knocked and rang the doorbell and everything. I went outside. And it was a guy from India, and he speaks either, I don't know if he was Indian or if he was Pakistani. He was either Hindu or Urdu, because in this country, a lot of the delivery guys, they speak other languages besides broken English maybe, but Arabic and then something else from their home country. And this guy didn't know any English, and he brought the wrong package to the wrong place, right? And I'm like, take it somewhere. He's like, but there was no communication whatsoever except for like, no. He kept putting the package, and I'm like, you have to look at the package and say, no, wrong letter. It's an apartment complex.
Google Translate works miracles. Having good friends or colleagues or co-teachers works miracles. There are many days in China where it was just ting budong all day.
Because at school, we're speaking English with our students. For our listeners, we have English is the lingua franca for most international schools and across the board, I would say. And then living in the country, it depends on where you live, but you might live in a bubble, you might not. You might live right with all the people that are speaking the home country language around you. And it's an exciting topic. We could talk on a whole nother episode just on languages. But I had to connect there a little bit and explain why I had gone from the camera. But I love the fact that India has, if I'm not mistaken, like over 100 different languages that are spoken. And of course, the Hindi is going to be right at the top with a lot of them learn that. But they do have their own little village languages. Like they'll speak 6 different varieties of language in their community area.
They do. I originally tried to learn a little Hindi, same way I did Chinese. It is hard. And I often tell people, like, the older you are, the harder it is to learn a new language. Not saying that it can't be done, but it just seems to be harder to intake or take in another language.
That's part of the experience, though, isn't it? And that's part of the joy. Is to those kinds of challenges every day are what make it so rich as far as an experience when you're overseas.
And I often have people even here who will apologize and they'll say like, not good English. And I'm like, your English is just fine. It's perfect.
Better than Greg's.
And the thing is, they're trying to communicate with me in English, and they're saying not that they don't have good English, but you have better English than I have Hindi, because I have no Hindi. So I
You're the guest, yeah.
yeah, by letting them know, like, it's fine. You're doing amazing, and I appreciate that you're trying to help me or communicate with me in any way that you possibly can, because you're right. I'm what you just said, Greg. You're right. I'm here in your country, and I don't have any language, and you're trying to help in my language. So don't apologize.
You are awesome. You've got a great spirit with you. Your travels are growing, and you're going to probably keep doing it for years to come. I love that.
Tamisha.
Last year, actually, in India.
Okay. So this is your third
Good
year
segue.
in India. Have you decided, this is your last year, have you decided, do you want to tell the ITP crowd what's coming for you next year?
Well, it's always a story with me. So I like to tell myself that when I boarded the plane in July of 2024, that in my head, I already knew that this would probably be my last year here. Same thing. September, we received those messages about renewing contracts and everything that comes along with it, and early notification. I sat on it for probably about a week, and I was like, I can't sit on it any longer. Just let me go ahead and pull the trigger, and also turning in my resignation. And that's kind of where JP comes in. You want to hop on right quick?
Well, I got Tamisha as a client, and I was excited because of, you can see, her enthusiasm. I knew she was going to find something fantastic. I helped her with her CV, her cover letter, interview, and Tamisha, drum roll.
So, well, let me go back because of
Mississippi.
I love JP because she was
We love JP.
so kind and patient with me, because I remember when she sent me the first draft, I sent like this long note, and most people probably would have been like, you know what, I don't know if I'm going to deal with her. She was just so patient and kind in her response. And then when we actually were able to chat, she broke every question that I had down with a answer that made me see the big picture of why she'd done this and why we were going to do this that way. And again, I had this feeling that I need to trust her. She's the expert. I'm glad I did, because I believe it was around maybe September 25th or 20th that we got TV and cover and everything taken care of. She had me do edits on it. She looked over it. She asked, was I fine? She supported me with the cover letter, even supported me with if I needed to have another template for a different position. So for multiple positions, we worked through all of that together, and I applied for a position September 30th, had my interview October. And next thing I know, I was offered a position, and I am actually headed to, drumroll.
Where?
Yeah.
Vietnam. Are you going to Ho
I
Chi
will
Minh
be
City, or are you going
drinking
up north?
Vietnam.
Where are you going?
Oh, nice.
Which city?
Yeah, north or south?
Going to Hanoi.
Hanoi up north. Okay. Are you
Wow.
going to Eunice or a
No,
different school?
going to Eunice. I'm actually
Okay.
going to Concordia.
Concordia. Okay.
Concordia?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Woo,
Wow.
Tamisha. I love that.
You should see what JP did with my second book. I got it back, and the comments were longer than the book. I couldn't believe it. It was amazing.
In
She's
screenshots,
concise, isn't she?
Tamisha. And if you can imagine, I took screenshots and circled things and wrote on the screenshot. He said, I woke up to 45 messages in my WhatsApp.
And that
and
was
then I
one
realized
chapter.
you were editing my book.
Hey, guess what?
What?
I got JP back for you, because she probably woke up to like 45 messages.
Good
or
for
emails.
you. You're on my team.
So I got for you.
You're on my team. All right. Hey, I am so happy that you're going to Vietnam. I have spent time in Vietnam in the south. And, of course, if you want to go to Cambodia and you need someone to trust there, I have a few contacts for you. So just to spread the, pay it forward to you. I appreciate what you're doing. So you China and India and Vietnam, I mean, your life is becoming this rich, an additional rich tapestry after the States. But wow, what a great career choice it was. Looking back after all those years about wanting to go overseas, look at you now.
Yeah.
Right? It's fantastic. And it's
And
not
so inspirational for our
October?
listeners. Yeah. I just
October
love your
job?
spirit.
Yeah.
That's just the best. Oh my God.
Even my colleagues, I finally let the cat out of the bag like in November to them. So I held for weeks that I had already accepted a job. My principal knew, of course, because they contacted him.
Yeah.
Because he was my reference. So he knew, but I held on for weeks like that I had a position. People kept asking, so I finally let it out of the bed in November. And even for people who don't know, they're shocked because they're like, have you been interviewing? And I'm like, for what? I accepted my position in October. And you're like, October?
That's the best feeling.
You know what I love about it, though, Tamisha? I say Tanisha, I'm sorry, Tamisha, with the M. I love the fact that you got a job early, and I love that experience, even if it's February, because I personally am always transparent with my current position to have their support when I go to a job fair or when I'm interviewing and all that. But here's what my point is that you can give 110% to your job now without worrying about anything. There's no September to January or February like you had in that first time. There's no worrying about whether or not you have a job, and you can focus solely on leaving a legacy of great passion with your students now. It's amazing. It really is, and it's a joy over student.
Or you could stop going to staff meetings and not worry about it.
I mean, I missed the last one because I'm staying. No, I have another year or two here. Yeah, but good. Congratulations! What a great story for this show. It really is.
Thank you. So it's a great thing. I enjoy it. Right now, I'm getting myself in the mindset of the long journey home, which is about 24 hours in 2 weeks. So I can see my family, like especially my daughter and my 2 granddaughters. So the hardest part is probably as you get older, having to take those very long
flights.
Diabetes traveler socks. That's the big secret for me.
Bring us around,
I call them
Ken.
like the
I
pressure
find
socks.
those socks.
Yep, the compression socks.
Compression socks. Yes, I'm sorry, Greg. What did you say?
I was going to say, you know what? We've almost reached an hour here. We've reached a little bit over an hour. Would you like to bring us around
You know
again,
what? I
Kent?
will. Let's go around the horn, but I will say that we could probably do 3 episodes with Tamisha and only touch the surface.
I want you to come back.
Tamisha,
yeah.
you have to come back when
We
you're
wanna
in Vietnam
hear-
and
we
tell
wanna
us all
hear
about it.
about-
Would you promise to do that for us?
I mean, I surely will.
Oh, I love that. So, Tamisha, let's go around the horn for final thoughts. I'll start with the hosts, and then we'll come to you for final words. Single guy, what do you think?
I'm almost speechless. I could echo everything Tamisha has been sharing about recruiting and about thinking about jobs and all of that. I have nothing else to add. I just celebrate Tamisha's story, and I hope that our listeners enjoy this episode because it's such a rich information episode. Really is from Tamisha's mouth. It's not us talking, it's her, right?
Hey, absolutely. JP Mint, final thoughts.
I don't know about our listeners, but I got goosebumps several times during this story. As
I
we
still
said,
have 'em.
going back to those first moments of stepping off the plane. And I'm so glad you accepted my offer to come onto the show. And I hope you also enjoyed it. And we really do want to hear all about the next journey when you come back as a second guest, please. And Kent?
Oh, well, let's go to Tamisha. I imagine she's going to announce her new influencer platform. So, Tamisha, final thoughts and big announcements.
Check spam in November.
Spam.
Well, yes, that is what I would say. I would definitely say don't get discouraged. Don't give up. Don't move too quick. Just if anybody is interested in just life abroad, it is amazing. But like I always tell people, life keeps life.
I would like to thank our very special guest, Temisha Shantel, veteran international teacher. Thank you so much for joining us, Tamisha.
Thank
Woo!
you.
I would also like to thank my co-host, Greg the Single Guy. You can buy his book, International Teaching, the Best Kept Secret in Education, by
balloons.
www.amazon.com, by Gregory D. Lemoyne, MD, PhD, MSA, MSW, by his book.
Celebration because you got it right. Look, double balloons.
I'd like to also thank JP Mint. You can find her at jpmintconsulting.com. Thank you so much, JP Mint.
Woohoo! I got real balloons.
And I'm Kent the Cat Guy. As always, you can find me in room 303. See you next time.
Oh, that was so much fun.
Vietnam.
Vietnam's on the way, right?
Yeah, I love
You're
that.
awesome.